Can Catholics get IUIs? Yes, no, maybe. The answer is not 100% clear. It's not a black and white answer from the church, and I was reading conflicting answers to this question and I was getting frustrated. So I spoke to the ethics director of the St. Paul VI Institute, formerly the Pope Paul VI Institute. They haven't changed the domain name of their website yet. I have her info below, Sister Renée and the St. Paul VI Institute linked below. I am so grateful to Sister Renée. Again, she's the ethics director of the St. Paul VI Institute. I am so grateful to Sister Renée for speaking with me about this. We ended up speaking for about an hour about this and other ethical questions, and I promised her that I would share the knowledge that she shared with me with you. Okay, so first of all, IUI. What is an IUI? An IUI is an intrauterine insemination, and it is a procedure used by many infertile couples to conceive. It's a very popular procedure, and I wanted to know if it was a morally acceptable procedure for Catholics to do. So when I spoke with Sister Renée, we started from the beginning. She doesn't know how strong of a Catholic I am or anything, but of course we covered that God is the creator who created us out of divine love. God gave us life, and He's our model for everything. So when we create life, when we co-create with God, it needs to be an act of love as well, just as God, when He created us, was out of love. So there needs to be a complete giving of self between the man and woman in the sexual embrace. It needs to be life-giving, procreative, and love-giving, unitive. When we create, we need to imitate God's love and be loving and life-giving when we create. The sexual embrace should imitate God's love. So any procedure or technique that gets in the way of that life and love-giving in the sexual embrace is not recommended by the Catholic Church. So any procedure that replaces the beautiful sexual embrace is not okay for Catholics, but any procedure that assists this embrace is okay for Catholics. However, in the case of an IUI, it is not 100% clear. Sister Renée recommended that I read Donum Vitae. Donum Vitae came out in 1987, actually before IUIs even existed. Only AIs were being done, artificial insemination, which is an insemination, but just not as deep, not in the uterus of a woman. Anyway, Donum Vitae means gift of life, and it was released by the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, which is part of the Roman Curia, and basically their whole mission is to spread sound Catholic doctrine. So I have Donum Vitae linked below, and if you scroll down to number 6, you'll see a section on interventions. And I have the exact quote in the description box below, but basically it says that AI could be moral if it assists the sexual embrace. Then Sister Renée recommended that I read Dignitas Personae, which means the dignity of the person, which was released in 2008, also by the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. And I also have that linked below. And Dignitas Personae, from what I read, pretty much just reconfirms what was written in Donum Vitae. I mean, there's a lot more in there about freezing eggs and all the things that is definitely not okay for Catholics, but in the case of an IUI, it still just confirmed the position that if it assists the conjugal act, it's moral. If it replaces the conjugal act, it is immoral. So basically, the Church does not have a definitive stance on Catholics getting IUIs, and each couple needs to discern and pray and judge if it is moral or not. And there are theologians that argue that it is moral, and there are theologians that argue that it is not. It is immoral. Sister Renée sent me 2 articles. One is for IUIs and one is against IUIs. Side note, in these articles, instead of IUI, the term gift is used, and gift is an abbreviation for gamete intrafallopian tube transfer, which is actually a pretty complicated procedure that's not really done anymore. It's when the wife's ova or ovum is removed from her body, the husband's sample is removed from his body, and the two are separated in a catheter by a bubble and then placed together in the woman's body. An IUI is a much simpler procedure where the man's sample is simply placed in the woman's uterus. And the way that this can be moral in the church's eyes is if the man's sample is collected during the conjugal act, and that is done with a perforated condom. There's probably a better term for that, but that's the only term I can come up with right now. But basically, with a perforated condom, the man's sample is able to naturally flow into the woman, and some is able to be retained and given to the doctor. In this way, the sample collection is moral because it doesn't replace the conjugal act. But if the collection happens without the wife, without the conjugal act, then it is replacing the conjugal act. I cannot believe I'm talking about this online. This is not something I want to talk about, by the way, but I had this question, and so I know other Catholics have this question, so I feel obligated to share. Anyway, the argument against IUIs, that the child has come to be through doctors and technicians and not the conjugal act. The argument that Sister Renée sent me is by John M. Haas, who is the president of the National Catholic Bioethics Center. The article that Sister Renée sent me that is for IUIs, basically saying that the procedure only assists the conjugal act, and the conjugal act is still allowed to happen as God designed it to happen. This article is by Reverend Donald McCarthy. He actually passed away last year. May he rest in peace in heaven. And he was not only a professor at St. Mary's Seminary, but he was also the director of education at the Pope John XXIII Medical Moral Research Center in Missouri. So as you can see, you can really take either side of this debate. Moral authorities have definitely taken their sides. Sister Renée is in the camp of IUIs do not assist the conjugal act. She described it as water dripping on a rock, and a few drops doesn't harm anything. A few IUIs in a marriage might seem like nothing, but she said over time that water dripping and dripping and dripping can erode the rock. So too many IUIs can damage the marriage. An IUI is typically going to happen during the day, Monday through Friday. Most people work during that time, so if it is a struggle for the spouses to get together for the sexual embrace during a time when the doctor's office is open, you get the picture. It is not really assisting the conjugal act. But then on the other hand, if the spouses have flexible schedules and it is not stressful for them to schedule an IUI after the natural conjugal act, I can see how a person could take the other side of the debate. Anyway, I hope I've explained this debate well. You can continue to read and research more. I have everything linked below, Donum Vitae, Dignitas Personae. I actually couldn't find these 2 articles online, but if you want to get those, if you email Sister Renée, I'm sure she could send them to you. Or if you email me at everydaycatholicchannel@gmail.com, I can just take a picture of these arguments and email them to you. I'm happy to do that. If you are in this predicament and you don't know whether to go forward with a procedure, I definitely recommend prayer and research, and I am so sorry that you are in this predicament at all. Feel free to check out my other videos on infertility, because infertility sucks. It sucks so much. But we can find peace and joy in God and following His will and knowing that this life is not the end-all be-all. There is so much more waiting for us in heaven, complete joy, complete peace with God. So I hope that brings you some consolation. I'm praying for you. God bless you. Bye.